week we finished, for all intents and purposes, I think we got through 13. Did we get all the way through 13? So we've seen Paul and Barnabas shake the dirt off of their feet, or the dust off their feet, which is a way of breaking fellowship with the people from Antioch, which had decided they were going to pick up stones and stone Paul and Barnabas. If you remember that they went in, they're going to do that again. They're going to go in, preach to the Jews first and then the Gentiles. So they'll go to the synagogue and preach Jesus. So that's what we're fixing to get into. And when it left off, it just said the disciples were filled with joy and with the Holy Ghost. We're going to just dive right into 14. And it came to pass in Iconium that they went both together into the synagogue of the Jews, and so spake that the great multitude, both of the Jews and also of the Greeks, believed. So here we go. We see that both of them have done went. They've done went from Antioch to Iconium. If you see on your map right there, that's roughly 90 miles. Roughly, between 70 and 100 miles. I don't remember exactly, but it's a good little hoop. So they get to Iconium, the first thing they do, like I said just now, they're going to go into the synagogue and preach Jesus. And you'll see right here in just a minute what's going to happen. Verse 2, but the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and made their minds an evil effect against the brethren. So there you go again. The Jews always not accepting Christ. It's just a constant battle with the Jews and them believing in Jesus. And it makes sense. It would be just like somebody that worships Buddha or somebody that has a different religion than you telling you that Jesus ain't who you think he is. That's kind of the effect. All that you know and all that you see and all that you feel is being told that it ain't right. You know, what we believe ain't right. So that's what pretty much preaching to them. Jesus is telling them everything you know about what you think you know, it ain't right. It's Jesus is the way. So you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I mean, these people are having to deal with that, and they've done got it into their minds that works is going to get them to heaven, not a man. It's what I can do to get to heaven is how they think. So you've done seen the Gentiles are being stirred up by the Jews with evil effect against the brethren. 3, long time therefore abode they speaking boldly in the Lord, which gave testimony unto the word of his grace, and granted signs and wonders to be done in their hands. So what it's saying is they stayed a long time with these people. Even God's working signs and miracles through what they're doing, just like they did with Paul. With Peter. Remember the healings and all that? It don't go into great detail. It just says that God's working through them. 4, but the multitude of the city was divided, and part held with the Jews and part with the apostles. Okay, so you got, this is going to happen every time. When you start preaching Jesus, there's going to be people that believe and people that don't believe. So that's all it's saying. It's part stayed with the side of the Jews. It's works by faith, or works gets you to heaven, and the others sided with the apostles. They believed in Jesus. It was the good news. They accepted the good news. 5, and when there was an assault made both of the Gentiles and also of the Jews with their rulers to use them despitefully and to stone them. 6, they were aware of it and fled unto Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and unto the region that lieth round about, and there they preached the gospel. So instead of staying there, they stayed there a long time preaching, but instead of, keep on pushing the bar, they just say, you know what, we'll just move on. That's what they did. They're not going to sit there and get killed over it. They're going to move on. So you'll see what happens here in just a minute. So they've done went from Iconium to Lystra and Derbe. You see 5, 6, 7. It's not that far. It's just a whole region right there. And Laconia is where you'll find the man named Timothy later on. You remember Timothy? You know Timothy, don't you, Jason? You know Timothy real well, don't you? That's what Daryl calls Jason's, is Timothy. Timothy. But do you know who else you find there? You remember who else is there? Oh, Demas. You remember Demas, the one that Paul takes up? He's almost like a Timothy. Paul takes him up and teaches him all this stuff, and we'll get into that later, but he's in here. He's in this book. He teaches him up, turns him into a disciple, and then what does he do? He likes the pleasures in this world more than he likes the gospel. He ends up falling back into the world. So they're from that same area, Timothy and Demas. You know what? I mean, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about now, but you can kind of just fill in the gaps and know where these people are from. Laconia, I'm going to stop too. Laconia is also a place where this woman named Thecla, her name's Thecla, and she's not in the Bible, but there's a book written in like 5 AD or something like that. It was in the first century. The 5 AD thing's something different. It was in the first century. It was the Acts of Paul and Thecla, is how you say it. And it's not first century, second century apocryphy writing. And I bring this up because everybody has the question, what does Paul look like? Has anybody ever wondered what Paul looked like?
I've had a beard, long hair like this.
No, Paul, this is a description from the Acts of Paul and Thecla, which is not in the Bible, but it's the only description we have of Paul. And I only got this far is because it's been several weeks since I've taught, so I keep just digging and looking and digging, and I get on rabbit chases. This is how this happens.
That's good stuff. I mean, I see where you're talking about.
Okay. This is how he's explained in this Acts of Paul and Thecla. He's bald-headed, bow-legged, strongly built, a man of small size with meeting eyebrows, with a rather large nose, full of grace. For at times he looked like a man, and at times he had a face of an angel. That's how he's described. And you can read some of, he wrote almost half of the New Testament.
Sure did.
So if you go through there and start reading stuff, you can get hints and signs. He says, he didn't say it in these words, but he says, I'm not a good looking man. And if you think, we're fixing to get into, he's finna get stoned here in just a minute.
Yep.
But I want to plant this picture in your head. He's got meaty eyebrows, a big nose, he's short, he's not a real attractive guy, but he's fixing to get stoned. And then he goes right over to another place and starts preaching. And when you get stoned, somebody's over the top of you with boulders, slamming them down on you. It ain't like you're running around getting rocks thrown at you. So just think of the damage that would do to your face. He's probably black and blue, bleeding. He's probably horrendous to look at. But he goes on and preaches to the next place. Could you just wrap your mind around that? It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And this is establishing churches. This is his first missionary trip.
Yes, sir.
And if you look at the map, you see the big writing right there, Galatia. His book to the Galatians is to all these people right here. This 8, 4, 6, 5, 7, all them people is Galatia. Galatia wasn't a place. It's not a city. It's a place. It's an area. Yeah. And I had no idea. Yeah. Okay. 8 is where it was at. I'm sorry, y'all. And there sat a man at Lystra and put in his feet. That means he was lame. He couldn't walk. Being a cripple from his mother's womb, who never had walked. And this is going to sound a lot like what you see in a couple of different other places where Peter healed the lame. But 9, the same heard Paul speak. So that man heard Paul speaking and preaching, who steadfastly beholding him and perceiving that he had faith to be healed. So this man's hearing Paul preach. I guess he's probably sitting in the corner somewhere, looking around people, hearing the word being preached. And Paul just catches a glimpse of him and just sees him glowing like, this man's got faith in Jesus to be healed, is what it's saying right here.
That's what.
10, said with a loud voice, stand up right on the feet, and he leaped and walked. I mean, just like that. Paul told him to stand up, walk on your feet, and he leaped and walked. And, that sounds a lot like all the other ones, but, if God chooses to do a miracle, I believe if there's enough non-believing people in the presence of God, and there's only one God-fearing person in there, that he will do marvelous works, even today, to prove a point. I have no doubt in my mind that he is able to do that still.
That is a fact.
Why does he not do it still now? Because he's got enough people that believe in him, that can be a testimony, that can just share. He don't have to. He don't need to.
Right.
It's not a party trick. It's all about believing it. I mean, if he was just going to heal people left and right and just make people... It's not a miracle that you go from not walking to walking. It's a miracle that you got saved in the first place.
That's a fact.
You can get healed and get to walking, but guess what? Everybody lives forever, right? But it depends on what your faith is in Jesus is where you're going.
Right.
So if you're going to, just like when Jesus said it's better for you to go to hell without an eye, you gouge your eye out, it's better for you to go to heaven with not an eye than go to hell with both your eyes. So would you rather be lame and go to heaven, or would you rather, be healed and just lose the faith somehow and not be going to heaven? The miracle ain't in the healing.
That's right.
It's in the saving. And I just think if we was in church and somebody seen somebody get healed, it would be all about the healing, and it wouldn't be about the works
Right.
of God. It'd be about what happened. It wouldn't, you'd lose it. I think you would lose it somewhere, and it wouldn't be what it is. But the real miracle's in the saving grace of God
Right.
through Jesus. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker. So, who has the other Bible? Do you know who these people are? It says Zeus and Hermes.
Barnabas and Paul.
Yeah, but it's Zeus and Hermes.
Zeus and Hermes, yeah.
Zeus and Hermes. You know who those are? The Greek gods.
Yeah.
So they've gone went into Lystra. You see that they didn't go into a temple right off bat like they've been doing. So this means this is a totally Gentile. They ain't no Jews. You know what it takes to build a temple in an area? It takes 10 Jewish men to build a temple. So there's not 10 Jewish men here.
Yeah.
So you got pretty much just Gentile or pagans. They believe in all the gods of the Greek gods.
Priest of Jupiter.
All right. So when I get done with this story, I'm going to explain to you why this story makes no sense unless you know the background of the people. Okay. And they called Barnabas Jupiter, which is Zeus, and they called Paul Mercurius, which was
The chief.
Hermes, yeah, because he was the chief speaker, and Hermes was the speaker of the two. He wasn't. Hermes was a speaker. That's why they called him the speaker. And if you think about it, Zeus would have been gray-headed. He would have been the older person. So you think of Barnabas was older than Paul. that would give you a clue that Barnabas was older than Paul and probably gray-headed. So that's just something else to think. I'm trying to paint a picture here for y'all so you can see these people. Then the priest of Jupiter, which is the priest of Zeus, which was before their city, brought in oxen and garlands onto the gate, and would have done sacrifices with the people, which when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out and saying, Sirs, or friends, depends on which one you're reading from, why do you do these things? We are also men of like passions, and with you, and preach unto you that you should turn from these vanities. I'm going to stop right there. We're going to go back and reread 15, but I want to explain to you why these people thought that they were Jupiter, Hermes, and Zeus, pretty much. And there's a metamorphosis, a book called Metamorphosis, or a poem called Metamorphosis. It's wrote by a poet called Ovid in 6 AD. And the story comes from this place. It was about a woman and a man named Barkis and Philemon. So Barkis and Philemon, remember those two names? They were older people that lived in a little house. But this is a wise tale now. This is Mercury and Jupiter come down as men into the Laconia, or wherever they're at right here, and portray themselves as poor people. And they went around to all these different people trying to get somebody to help them. Well, when they met this Barkis and Philemon, which were older folks, already older, those two let them into their house, not knowing that they were gods.
Right.
And started, feeding them. It says, well, how can we help you? And they were feeding them. And they noticed that every time they didn't have much food, is what it said. And every time they got the food out, it was like the food was replenishing. So they just ate and ate and ate, and they wasn't running out of food. And Philemon and Barkis, or however you say her name, was like, something's going on here. And then finally, those two, Zeus and Hermes, said, hey, we're gods. And we want you to leave town because we're going to burn this place to the ground because none of those people would help us. And that's the old wise tale. That's why they did what they did. They believed that tale.
Right.
So they wasn't going to mess up again. When Zeus and Hermes come back and they misinterpreted it, they said, hey, he healed a lame man. They must be the gods. They're back. That's why they started. We ain't going to do that again. They're going to burn the place down. We better treat them like gods. But you can see how people are. Have you ever had we're fixing to get into the rest of this. Have you ever had a favorite football player, a favorite baseball player, a favorite race car driver, or anything that you really liked and they done terrible that year and you went from loving them to, man, they need to just quit playing ball, or, you know what I mean? You just turn on them like that. That's how people operate. And we're finna see that.
That's right.
We're finna see that come to pass right now. They're trying to worship them right now, and he said, it says that Paul and Barnabas rent their clothes. You remember when Jesus was telling the high priest that he said, "Ego me, I am who I am." The priest rent his clothes. That was a sign of rejection. Like, no, it was it's hard to explain. It's
what they did then.
That's what they did, and it was a sign that everybody knew. If you rent your clothes, you started tearing your clothes off, it's like, no, this is not, I'm not accepting this kind of a thing. So,
Tore their clothes off, but ashes on their head and,
sackcloth and ash.
yeah. They still do that to this day.
I wouldn't doubt it.
They do over at that area.
They hold firm onto the Old Testament. Okay, 15, we're going to reread it. And saying, Sirs, why do you do these things? We are also men like passions with you. And preach unto you that you should turn from these vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all the things therein. So how did it, you know, how Paul goes in and starts preaching in the synagogues, and he talks about Moses delivering the people from Egypt, and how they went by the pillar of fire by night and the smoke by day, and he didn't say all that to these people. This is a different audience.
Yep.
He goes all the way back to creation. This is the God that created all things. This is the man that's giving you the rain, the crop, the food, all the things therein. But he says, turn from these vanities. Vanity means empty.
That's right.
That means, so this is like a slap in the face. Your gods ain't no good. So you're not going to pray to Tychos, the god of luck. You're not going to pray to Asclepius for healing. You're not going to pray to Artemis for a childbirth. I mean, there was a lot of gods they prayed to for different things. So turn from your vanities. That's like a slap in the face. It's like, dude, we've been following these guys since the beginning of time. And you're going to tell me there's a different God? There's only one? And you see what happens. 16, who has in times past suffered all nations to walk in their ways. And he's talking about God, the real God.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good and gave us rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. And with these sayings, scarce restrained thou the people, that they had not done sacrifices unto them. So even renting their clothes and, telling them that they're turn from your vanities, and this is the God that we serve. This is who we're trying to preach to you about. They barely did stop them from sacrificing to them.
Right.
And that's all they're saying right there. 19, and there came thither certain Jews from Antioch and Iconium. We used to look at the map. We just left Antioch and Iconium. We just went down to Lystra and Derbe, right? What happened in Antioch and Iconium? They dusted off their feet. Both times they was finna get stoned. So they done followed them all this way to stir up mischief. And if you think about it, you see all these people on TV. There's no God. There ain't. They want to fight about there ain't no God. I used to not believe in God, but I wouldn't fight about there ain't no God. But if you got enough about you to say there ain't a God, why are you wasting your time?
Why do you waste your time trying to prove that there ain't a God if there ain't a God?
Right.
That's what I'm saying right there. That's what I'm trying to get out. So these people have done travel from Antioch and Iconium. From Antioch to Iconium, 90 miles, just walking. Then from there to there is another, 10, 15, 20 at least. On foot, following these two cats just to try to shut them up. Just to try to, get them stoned. And I have no idea where we were.
We were on,
Okay, yeah. And there certain came in, from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Paul, drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead. Now, this stoning, why did they stone people?
He just didn't like you.
They didn't like you.
When they didn't like you, yeah, when they didn't like you, when they stone somebody, they hold them in the middle, and they get all these people around about, and everybody's got stones in their hand, and when they throw it on you, I'm sorry, but you got to realize some hit their arms, some hit their legs, some hit their guts, some hit their head, so you got to think about the way that they work.
I'm asking more broad of a question. Why did they stone people?
Oh, it's
Because it was effective.
that's right.
Because it would kill folks.
Yes, sir.
It was an effective way of killing somebody.
Yes, sir.
It was, not everybody running around with a sword. You know what I mean? And not everybody got a piece of rope to hang you with or to strangle you with. Hey, picking up a rock and throwing it at you is a pretty good way of killing you.
Yep.
And there's I read a lot of stuff. I read a lot of these commentaries and whatnot. There's a lot of people believed that Paul at this moment was dead. He was stone cold dead when they dragged him out there, and they believe because you see later on that Paul says he went to the third heaven.
That's right.
He's seen things that you cannot explain with words. It would not do it justice to even try to explain it with words, is what he says in a nutshell. But he said there's a lot of people that think that, and it says that happened about 14 or 15 years ago. When I can't remember where it's at. I got it wrote down somewhere, but if you do the math, it's about at this time. So. And he says, I don't know if I was still in my body or if I was out of my body. I don't know if it was a dream or if I was dead, but that's what I seen. But it's something to think about. I'm not saying he was dead. I'm not saying he wasn't dead. I'm just saying, think about it. They stoned people because it was effective.
Yeah.
And the way that he recuperates from it is almost like unreal. So we're finna see. Supposing that he was dead, howbeit, as the disciples stood around about him, he rose up and came into the city. And the next day he departed with Barnabas to Derbe. So what did he do? The guys got around him, probably praying or looking at him. It's like, man, what am I going to do getting back home? But Barnabas is probably saying, man, I got to make that journey back by myself. Or they're praying, or, it's neat to think about what were going through those people's mind, looking at lifeless little old Barnabas there with his big eyebrow and his big nose and, beat black and blue, probably bleeding from everywhere. Just say, get up. He just gets up and say, hey, let's go back. That isn't the God not in that? I mean,
That's his heart show.
God is definitely in something like that. You just don't, if I would have just got stoned, there's no way we're finna go back to where we was coming from. We're finna go to the next place.
Finna dust my feet off there.
Thank God I'm alive, I'm not going back. So, 21, and when they had, so they went back to Derbe in 21, and when they had preached the gospel to the city and had taught many, they returned again to Lystra and to Iconium and to Antioch. This is this Antioch, not this one over here.
Which Antioch?
It's this Antioch up here in Galatia, not the Antioch in Syria.
Okay.
There's two Antiochs and it gets confusing. That's why I got you a map. So, just to stop right there. You are right here at Derbe, and where you started from is Antioch. You could very easily just go that 100 miles, 150 miles walk right over there to Antioch. Why in the world would you just backtrack all the places you just went and got run out of? Why? Why would you do that?
Check up on it.
You've established, you got people that are believing and people that ain't believing, and you've established a church pretty much.
You gotta go check up on it.
You gotta go check up on your people. God told them to spread the word, but it ain't our job to spread just the word. We're supposed to make disciples.
That's right.
And to make a disciple, you got to spend some time with somebody. You can't just say, hey, Jesus is good, or teach everybody about Jesus, see you later. That don't work like that.
Not just one time or one incident or one thing, but after more than one.
But see, if you plant that seed, then they gonna plant the seed, you wanna go back and see what's growing.
Yeah, but you see that it gets corrupt. The
You
seed gets
got- see,
corrupt.
He actually, what he's gonna end up finding out is that, it gets.
People
they're
run
not
with it.
doing the things that he told them, the things that he was teaching them to do.
People run with it, and
They took their own interpretation of it and said, well, we're gonna do it this way.
and a lot of times they would add a little bit of the law, or a little bit of what they used
They wasn't
to
supposed to be
do,
doing.
or a little bit of this, and that's how we got all the books that we got. The books of Galatia, the books of all the books that he wrote to all the different churches. It's because the churches wasn't acting right.
That's right.
And the church ain't never gonna act right as long as the people are made human. We got these as a reminder to keep us straight. The same stupid stuff they were doing then, we're doing now. So that's why they're there. So he's backtracking. And I had no idea where I stopped.
22.
Confirming, okay, so just backtrack all the way to Antioch. Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith. Now, this is an interesting word, disciples. People ask me, is there any disciples anymore? I thought it was only the 12.
That was
In a very
many.
strict sense, there was 12 disciples.
But
There
there
were
was many
the 12 disciples.
disciples of
They
Jesus.
were 12 originally.
In a literal sense, if you were sent, the word disciple means sent. If you were sent from this church, if you're a missionary and you go somewhere, you are a disciple.
Yeah.
Actually, if you wanna get real technical about it, anytime you leave this church, anytime you go into public and you talk about Jesus, you share God's word to somebody, you're being a disciple.
Yeah.
I mean, each of us is called in what is it,
I guess what I'm trying to
It-
say
it
is,
says,
the 12
uh,
disciples,
go
it's
ye there,
not
go
12,
out
there's
and make
11 of them,
disciples.
they are the cornerstones of heaven. Now,
Yeah.
why in the world we be walking on someone that we don't even know their name? That's what Jeff told me. He said, did you know the cornerstone? I ain't worried about no cornerstone in heaven. He said, I know, I'm talking to you. He said, listen, he said, don't you want to walk into someone that you don't even know their name? All right, okay, he got me digging.
They're there.
He got me digging. I mean, I got him wrote in here. And, you know, there's a church service over on
but
there. That's
that,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
to nutshell that, I mean, all of us are supposed to be disciples.
That's right.
We can say all, it's real easy to say, well, it's the preacher's job, it's the Sunday school teacher's job to talk and reach somebody, but in all reality, we're all called to be disciples and to spread the word.
And the work, most of the work we're supposed to do is not inside the church
Woo.
itself, it's on the outside.
Here's something I heard, today or yesterday. I read it, I heard it, I don't know what I did, but if Jesus came to you right now and says, if you're willing to give up your life and just come with me, I will save everybody in your family, all your family member, anybody you cared about, would you just lay your life down right now and come to heaven with me? Would you do it?
Yeah.
You would do it.
I would, because I know.
I think I would do it.
I know, because I would.
If you would just give up the rest of your life, come be with me, and I will save everybody that you know, would you do it? Think about that.
Ooh.
You're thinking about that. You would die for Jesus. You would die for salvation for others. But would you live, you're alive now, but how many of us live for Jesus and spread the word and save people? That stepped all on my toes. I heard that or read that, and I'm like, you know what? I probably would just give up my life so I would know everybody's saved, but I'm not gonna get out there and act a fool and try to get somebody saved. That's crazy. You die for Jesus, but you won't live for him? So I guess that got brought up because he just got stoned to death, or they thought he was dead. He's living for Jesus, but because he's not done, Jesus ain't done with him yet.
Right.
He won't let him die. He's bulletproof. And it goes on, and you'll see that in several spots that Paul would have gave up,
Right.
but God wouldn't let him.
Right.
Just think about that. You died for Jesus, but would you live for him? That stepped all over my toe. I guess it made me think of that one for Paul and them.
Confirming the souls.
Confirming the souls, we're just gonna read it again. Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith. And that's why he's backtracking, all right? That
Yeah.
he's confirming the people that are saved. And continuing in the faith, that word continue right there is that same word as a gladiator would have used in a fight. Back then they used to have those big gladiator fights.
Yeah.
This continue or contend. This means you're fighting. This ain't no easy thing. Being a Christian's not an easy thing. It's a hard thing. You can hold hands with the devil and have a good old time, but you hold hands with God, it's a rough ride.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And you see it right here from Paul. I mean, Jesus told you from the beginning that hated me, they surely gonna hate you.
Right.
And we're very lucky to live where we do. I just want to remind y'all that.
Yeah.
Because there's places overseas that you can't do what we're doing without worrying about a dude with a bomb strapped to him coming through the doors. Exhorting them to continue in the faith and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of God. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Through much tribulation, we'll enter the kingdom of God. Tribulation. 23, and when they had ordained the elders in every church and had prayed with fasting, they commended them to the Lord on whom they believed. So what do? They had done established and ordained elders in these churches. The people that knew the most that got ordained as an elder. So we've done established pretty much deacons or something to the sorts. Somebody that would pray, somebody that would be there, somebody that would do the work, be the hands and feet, do some of the preaching and mainly the praying and taking care of the church. 24, and after they had passed through out of Pisidia, they came to Pamphyllia, however you say that. You see it right there. It's right above Perga.
Yeah.
Pamphyllia. After they passed through Pamphyllia, we're at 25. And when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down into Attalia, and thence sailed to Antioch, from whence they had been recommended to the grace of God for the work which they fulfilled. And this is going back to Antioch. Remember where the preachers come through? They was filled with the five folks. You remember? I can't remember all their names, but you know that's where God talked to them and said, "Send them out." That's where they're going back to. And when they were come and had gathered the church together, they rehearsed all that God had done with them and how he had opened the door of faith unto the Gentiles. And there they abode long time with the disciples. So I don't say how long they had abode, but last night I was talking to my buddy, David, the one I work with, and he said that his grandfather and grandmother were missionaries. Well, when they come home, they bring all this stuff back from where they're missionary from. And they bring it back and just tell stories of all this stuff they done. This is the very first missionary gathering, just saying, hey, this is what happened. This is we saved these people. We've seen all this go down. Paul just got killed and come back from life. This is Barnabas. You know, we've walked like 5,000 miles, you know. We've seen all these people saved. We got 15 churches, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened there? But could you imagine the morale there when them two come back?
Yeah.
And you got to remember, this church there sent their two best preachers out instead of saying, hey, I don't want my two best preachers. I don't want Joel and Jason leaving. I want them to stay with me. No, they sent them out. Joel, Jason, y'all go preach somewhere else. We got this. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that's a selfless thing to do, to send out somebody that you want to hear. You send them out. And then when they get back, just think of what was going on there. It's mind-blowing. So, on Tuesday night, we give out crosses. Yeah, for clean time or you know, certain days or whatnot. I picked up this cross. Do you know what it means?
I do.
I do.
Shut up.
I do.
This is a 1-year cross.
Yeah, it is.
This cross represents 1 year. And I picked it up because when I started this class, it was a year ago.
Wow.
Today.
Today, on the day.
Ain't that crazy?
Ain't that nuts? It's been a year
That's
already. That is neat. So, you know, y'all been listening to me babble for a year.
Not
I feel sorry for y'all.
Bless our hearts.
You survived it though.
Yeah.
Might we can do it another year.
Survived.